The holiday season is the perfect time to cuddle up under the blanket with a warm, cozy game, with 2023 having quite the selection, so here are 45 great games, beginning with the Steam version of Good Pizza, Great Pizza. This is a time management title in which you're running your own cozy pizzeria, taking orders and making pies to suit your customers' requests, having a wonderful look and is worth a play. Co-op games have their place in the cozy gaming landscape, with the wonderful Blanc being of note, one in which a wolf cub and a fawn must work together to find their respective families. The art style has to be a highlight, where monochrome black and white is not easy to pull off, and while not the most complex or challenging one of these, is perfect for playing with a friend. We have a number of farming games of note as well, such as Research Story, a game in which growing crops isn't the main objective, but rather researching and cataloguing the various flora and fauna instead. However, it does have all those life sim elements that we have come to know and love, having a minimalist pixel art style that reminds me of Littlewood, and is an early access title of note. On the other hand, Sunhaven released out of early access and has quickly climbed the ranks to become one of the most popular farming games ever, since it is set in a fantasy world with monsters, dragons, and all sorts of weird and interesting creatures. As such, it adds in even more fantastical elements as compared to something like Stardew Valley, for example, which gives it a unique feel with the various locations that you can visit, as well as co-op with friends being a highlight. Developer Laura Shigihara is known for her adventure games such as Rakuen, with her release this year being Mr. Saito, one that tells a tale of an average Japanese salaryman who is spirited away to a strange world filled with weird and interesting creatures and does have an emotional story to tell, not to mention gorgeous pixel art as well, and is perhaps a good example of an RPG Maker game. I covered Terra Nil in my Game of the Year list, so go watch that video if you have not, in which this reverse city builder with an environmentalist theme is pretty cozy since you are restoring a barren wasteland and turning it lush and green again, eventually attracting animals and creating a little ecosystem, after which you destroy all traces that you were ever there. Something a little bit more hectic but still kind of cute is Enchanted, an Overcooked style multiplayer title in which you work together with your friends to manage the inn through fishing, cooking, brewing potions and more, including just a little bit of fighting, and is great with friends. Old school Flash game players will remember the Papa's series of time management games, where I cannot believe that they released Papa's Freezeria Deluxe on Steam in 2023 and has sold gangbusters with over 6,000 Steam reviews and an overwhelmingly positive rating, in which you are taking orders and making sundaes for your customers, and is a real throwback. The sequel to MS Paint's story mode, Passepartout 2: The Lost Artist, builds upon and expands the systems of the original, in which you're living as a struggling artist, creating your masterpieces to put up for sale, and while the concept has been done before, by this same team no less, it's unique enough to warrant a look. Fairy tales and cozy games go hand in hand, with the city builder title Fabledom being of interest, in which you're expanding a city and attempting to find a prince or princess in order to live happily ever after. It is still in early access with plenty of content to come, where I think that this sits at an interesting crossroads of genres and themes, which resulted in it being pretty popular. Here's another title that I don't see people talking about, but is one of the most popular releases on Steam, since Volcano Princess is a time management simulation title like the Princess Maker games, in which you are raising a little girl, with your choices affecting the ending that you will get, with this game having over 26,000 Steam reviews as of recording, which is pretty stunning. There was some controversy surrounding the prehistoric farming sim Roots of Pacha, where the game got taken down due to a contract dispute with their then publisher Crytivo, with the team managing to get back control and have self-published the game. The prehistoric theme is neat, although I don't know how historically accurate it is, with the mechanics of having to domesticate wild animals, as well as to pass down knowledge from one generation to the next, being of interest. I got a little bit confused between Mail Time and another game which I'll talk about later on, in which this wholesome 3D exploration platformer is all about playing as a mushroom person delivering mail in the forest. The art style is awesome, along with interesting characters and a wonderful little world to explore, making this one to get. I find it quite funny how developers end up with the same concept, since there are a lot of cozy games with witches in them for some reason, with The Witch of Fern Island being a farming sim in early access of note. You move to Fern Island and begin to establish yourself there, adventure to uncover the island's secrets while trying to become the most well-known witch around. A game that fits in with this video but is not my thing is The Wrench of Rivershine, a horse-wrenching simulation title in which, like trains and guns, there are people that go absolutely crazy for horses, so this looks like the perfect game for them. Here's a little bit of a weird one, since Sunshine Shuffle involves adorable animals playing cards, but these just so happen to be the same crew that robbed a bank 12 years ago, with the characters and their relationships being central here. Hello Good Boy is about a lost soul and his dog on a trek through the afterlife, so you can already see where this is going, telling an emotional tale that might just cause you to shed a few tears, having an amazing hand-drawn art style as well. Wholesome games in general have a theme of helping others, with Diluvian Winds being an interesting management sim that is exactly about that. Set at the foot of a lighthouse, grow and reinforce your hamlet, and welcome wary travelers, having to shore up the structure to protect against tidal waves, for example, and is an interesting title. Low-stakes racing games can be pretty zen, so if you love those, may I recommend Driftwood, a game in which you play as a sloth on a longboard, zipping down the hills and admiring the landscape. There is a little bit of stress and tension here, since you have to avoid traffic, for example, but overall, I think that this has pretty pleasant vibes. The game that I got confused with Mealtime mentioned earlier is Smooshy Come Home, a game in which you also play as a humanoid mushroom creature, but rather than delivering mail, have to find your way home instead. As such, the 3D platforming aspect here is neat, but not terribly complex, definitely giving off all sorts of cozy vibes. Speaking of which, the watercolour art of Dordogne looks absolutely amazing, telling a story of a woman who's trying to relive her childhood memories of those long summer days spent with grandma in the French countryside. Again, it's not the most mechanically challenging title, but it's a wonderful, heartwarming experience, and is perhaps the perfect counter to a chilly winter.
Summer's gone by in the blink of an eye.
Here's another cozy title in Fall of Porcupine, in which you play as a junior doctor sent to a small town against the backdrop of an unhealthy healthcare system and the struggles of those in it. It certainly has Night in the Woods vibes, along with some dark secrets of the town to uncover, but is generally a cozy title worth a play as well. A farming sim with a sci-fi twist is One Lonely Outpost, one that, perhaps controversially, underwent a significant change in visuals as compared to its Kickstarter showing, in which it swapped out pure pixel art for 2D sprites in 3D environments. Still, the sci-fi angle and terraforming the planet is interesting as compared to regular old farming on Earth, although it does seem to be having issues in early access and currently sits at mixed reviews. Cozy content creators on YouTube love their stickers, which is why Sticky Business was a great concept going in which you run your own small cozy business creating and selling stickers, having a wonderful colour scheme that matches the vibes. Here's a title that I was not expecting, since Lickbook Legacies is a social village management sim in which you play as the matchmaker, trying to pair people together to help your kingdom thrive, and comes to us from Ishtar Games, who made the roguelite tactical RPG The Last Spell, being a very different kind of game which is interesting as a result. Here's a cozy farming game that is going under the radar in Cornucopia, in which you know the drill by now. You inherit an old farm and have to restore it to its former glory, having an interesting pixel art style as well. Pack a Rat Down the Bun Barrels looks freaking adorable since the goal in the game is to catch the rabbits, but while it looks cute, the visuals hide a devious puzzle game that will make you scratch your head. You have to first come to grips with the behaviour of the bunnies in order to trap them, but then realise that they can also mate to produce baby bunnies, which factor into getting the true ending, with bunnies from different worlds being able to be brought together and stacked, definitely being one for puzzle game fans. Speaking of cozy, another game with literally that in the title is I Am Future Cozy Apocalypse Survival, in which you play as a man who reawakens from cryogenic sleep only to find himself in the middle of a post-apocalypse, but it's not the scary kind, where you do have robot companions to help you as you farm, fish and more, eventually being able to venture out to explore, and it's a different kind of survival game which I appreciate. There is a little bit more combat in Affogato, in which you play as a sorceress running a cafe, being able to befriend and venture into the minds of your customers in order to help them deal with their inner demons, having a little bit of a Persona 5 vibe to the game with an interesting reverse tower defense portion in the gameplay. Remember when I said that there are a lot of witches in cozy games? In Tiny Witch, you play as such a character who runs a minion store, making custom bespoke minions for your customers, having to be quick in your actions, and to prioritize which customer to serve, being a hectic but pretty cute title. I believe the developer of Chilquarium literally released the game on the same day as Starfield, which is a gutsy move to make, since pretty much all press coverage would have been going to that huge game, but yet they managed to carve out a nice little niche for themselves, since this is an idle game in which you're raising fish and selling them in real time, perhaps with the target audience having close to no overlap with people that would be interested in Starfield, which explains its success. A not-so-indie
farm simulation RPG
is Fae Farm, coming to us from Phoenix Labs, who are also the makers of the free-to-play Monster Hunter-like Dauntless, in which this is a fairy tale farming game with all the expected elements. As such, it's pretty cozy, but the bad news is that this team was affected by layoffs, so who knows about the future plans for the game. A chaotic local multiplayer title is Calax, basically multiplayer IKEA the game, in which only one player can read the instructions, but everyone must work together to build furniture, certainly having the capacity for hilarity. Another party game of note is Party Animals, a game which is basically Gang Beasts but with cute animals, which I'm not complaining about, so if you love the wobbly physics fun of that game but want something a little bit more modern, this is one to pick up. One of the best farming games of the year is Moonstone Island, in which you're spending a year away from home on a floating island archipelago in order to complete your alchemist training, being a pixel art farming sim with monster taming and deck building elements, mixing and matching many elements that I love in games, with the dungeon exploration and combat being fairly interesting, along with the expected life sim stuff, where I do have a soft spot for monster tamers since I just love looking at monster designs. Another farming sim with a twist is Paleo Pines, in which you enlist the help of dinosaurs to help in the farming, also being able to ride on them to explore the island, with there being nothing else quite like this game available on the market. We also had the release of the very long in development Mineko's Night Market, which can be found on the channel as far back as 2018 if I'm not wrong, in which your character moves to a Japanese-inspired island with cats and is free to explore, with a central mystery and of course night markets to attend, although people are saying that this should have been an early access title despite not being one due to bugs, lack of content and lack of quality of life options, so proceed with caution I guess. The possum is a close relative to the raccoon, aka the trash panda in internet lore and adoration, since while cute, these characters have a reputation for scarfing down food and just being a nuisance as adorable as they can be, with Pizza Possum being the perfect encapsulation of the concept. It's an arcade action hide-and-seek title in which you play as a mischievous creature attempting to eat as much food as possible while avoiding the doggy police, having a variety of tools to distract the popo as you go on an absolute rampage stuffing your face. Your goal? Break into the dog leader's throne and to eat their king-sized pizza, being absolutely chaotic and is a must-play, even having 2-player co-op for double the fun. Here's a very pleasant looking indirect city builder title in Station to Station, a game that converted me to the side of voxel art. This game looks awesome, in which you're attempting to connect station to station with railway tracks, and in doing so, the surrounding lands will evolve and grow, as will the now interconnected towns, being a very chill title that is great for relaxing. An interesting cozy game is A Tiny Sticker Tale, a puzzle adventure title in which you can convert any object on the map into a sticker, carry that to another area and then place it down to solve puzzles and progress, all with a wonderful cozy look. A live sim title with a twist is Cattails Wild Wood Story, the follow-up to Cattails Become a Cat from 2017, being an expanded version of that concept, in which, of course, you play as a cat. I think I've said cat a few too many times in this section already, but let's go with it. Since you're doing cat stuff like hunting for prey or fighting with other cats for territory, even being able to breed and to make tiny baby cats, but can also do distinctly non-cat things like build structures and farm, being a cat lover's dream cat game. My Time at Sandrock featured in my video on the best indie games of the year, in which the follow-up to My Time at Portia is a bigger and better version of that, as a sequel should be. Instead of an island, it is now set in the mining desert community of Sandrock, which has fallen on hard times, so you, as the newly appointed builder, will attempt to revive it by helping the locals, already being one of the best games in the genre. This game might not exactly look like a cozy game since it has an odd red, purple and orange colour palette and does have spikes and hazards, but Karma Zoo is all about working together with random strangers to complete platforming challenges in order to get to the end of the level. There are over 50 animals to play as, each with their own unique abilities, where the levels change and adapt depending on the number and mix of characters in the game, having crossplay across platforms, although Steam's player population isn't looking too hot right now, with it peaking at about 150 players as of recording. A curious 1.0 release is that of Coral Island, a farming sim with an environmentalist theme, coming to us from a developer out of Indonesia, in which the farming elements are all pretty well done. However, I have seen reports in the comments, Steam reviews and Steam forums that parts of the game are straight up not complete, asking you to literally come back later, which should not be the case for a 1.0 release, with the developers having a whole roadmap planned out for future content in 2024 and beyond. But it's strange that they decided to officially announce a 1.0 release, so maybe there are other reasons for that, but as a whole, it's a good one of these for sure. I always tell developers not to surprise release their games since time is needed to market and promote their title, but yet Snackle did just that and Shadow dropped, where anecdotally, let me know in the comments below if this is the first that you have heard of its release. It's a cozy farming game in which you play as a cat, with the standard farming game stuff, but it's extra adorable and rounds out 2023 quite nicely. And if you love wholesome games, you have to watch this video on 40 upcoming games of 2024.